Welcome back, geology students. This slide we were talking about locating or how to locate earthquakes. And what's in front of you is a little diagram, and it's showing you the P wave in green, and then in red it's the S wave. And what we can do is we can actually calculate, the actual radius of these circles, and then we can actually then triangulate the epicenter of the earthquake. And it's basically over here it's stating that the interval between the arrival of the P wave and the S wave depends on the distance between the epicenter and the seismograph. So typically long intervals equal great distances and short intervals equal short distances. So in this particular example here, we have this curve is showing the P wave, and then this is the red line is showing the S wave, and basically the difference between the arrival of the P wave and the arrival of the S wave is 6 minutes. So what we can do is from that we can draw a line all the way down to here, and then we can basically locate the epicenter. So this is it looks like distance. This is distance to epicenter in kilometers. So this would be 4,100 kilometers would be the difference between the arrival of the P and the S wave. So we can look at this on the next slide here. And so what we would do is basically we need 3 stations to locate an earthquake. So here it's showing seismograph stations are at different distances from the epicenter. So here it's showing you that the blue is in Berkeley. That's one seismograph station. And then the orange is located in Denver. And then we have the red that is located in New York. And then when we draw out the radius of each of these circles, and wherever it triangulates is going to be the epicenter of the earthquake, and they all meet here at this point. So we would do that for each, and essentially you'll be doing this in your lab next week, but that's essentially how you locate. You need 3 seismograph stations that are at different distances from the epicenter, and then you triangulate that. So that's the method. So earthquakes and plate tectonics. So this is kind of an amazing map, because all of the earthquakes occur along plate boundaries. They occur along the ring of fire. So this is the ring of fire right here. And all of these blue dots, let me get this down here. These blue dots represent the kind of the shallow earthquake, and I think the kind of the yellow or intermediate and the red I think are the deep-seated earthquakes. But again, yeah, here it says shallow, intermediate, and deep focus earthquakes occur at subduction zones. Shallow focus earthquakes occur at divergence and transform boundaries. So remember, in Iceland, what type of boundary is that? That's going to be a divergent boundary that runs right through the island. So you're going to have mainly here, you're going to have shallow type earthquakes there. But along here, where you have we'll talk about this, but where you have the Nazca plate being subducted under this plate here, you're going to have really deep-seated earthquakes. So obviously you get a lot of shallow type ones here, because this looks like we have the San Andreas as well as along here. So this is an interesting map. This has all been documented, and it basically outlines the tectonic boundaries. So here's kind of a block diagram showing you the depth of different earthquakes. So typically up here where we have a subduction zone, here is where we're going to have our shallow type earthquakes. And as this slab is subducted even further, we're going to have our intermediate, and then finally we have our deep-seated type earthquakes that develop. So this is coined after the scientists. It's called the Wadi Benioff zone. So here's an example of a magnitude of an 8.8 earthquake off of Chile. So we've got two plate boundaries. We've got the Nausicaa plate, which is located here, and then the South American plate here. So basically the earthquake emanated along this subduction boundary here, this convergent boundary here. And the red star basically shows the epicenter of the earthquake. And also for some more information is that the plate was moving at a rate of 8 centimeters per year here. And the earthquake occurred February 27th of 2010 at 6:34 p.m. So here's some more details on this earthquake in Chile. It's showing you basically this is all the data that's been compiled. This from A to 8 prime shows you the cross section, and they've collected all the data. And I believe the star represents the focus of the earthquake, and all of these represent where the earthquakes occurred in the earth. So up here you're going to have your shallow, here your intermediate, and then here your blue. Your blue are going to be your deep-seated earthquakes here. So it kind of summarizes that here. It says here that the blue dots represents the deeper. When that plate is being subducted, it subducts really at the point where it's really deep is where you get those blue dots. That's the right down here. You're talking at a depth of over 100 kilometers here. So interesting, very nice map to demonstrate. So here is again. This is talking about the Chile earthquake, but this is also talking about aftershocks. So usually right after the main earthquake, you have later you have these aftershocks, and here's just showing the distribution of those. But also it's important to know that these aftershocks they decrease. The rate of these aftershocks decrease proportional to the inverse of time. So what that means is essentially after the second day, here it shows that about half of the number of aftershocks of the first day, and then on the 10th day there's about 1/10 that number on the first day. So it's just kind of that ratio. So as time goes on, you're going to have less and less of aftershocks. Basically, that's what's telling you. Yeah. So just about kind of read about what these aftershocks, what are aftershocks. So here's kind of just showing a kind of a graphical means of the triangle when we triangulated the earthquake. So this is showing you here that the S waves arrived 24 minutes and 6 seconds after the primary waves. And your primary waves here looks like it took 13 minutes and 6 seconds. And then later on you have your surface waves, and your Rayleigh waves come after. But it looks like the difference, what is it here? It says that yeah, it says so basically that is it between these two waves. And then this is another kind of another example of what may be causing these earthquakes. And one idea or scenario may be that that we're injecting a lot of salt water in these wells in the earth, and from doing this injection, this may be a cause of earthquakes. And you can see this on this diagram here. It has the number of earthquakes per year here as a function of time, and we're seeing a really big spike in earthquake generation due to injection. And you can read more about this, but it's talking about just associated and non-associated earthquakes per year in the U.S. mid-continent. And over here it's talking about saltwater injection disposal. And it's just showing that this, we may be actually the cause of earthquakes. And, you can see this distribution of it here. This is earthquakes associated with this brine injection. Sorry about that. But it's just showing all these circles represent the magnitude. And all the small circles, this is a 3 on the Richter scale, all the way up to the bigger the diameter of the circle, the greater the earthquake. Yeah, so these are all represent, each of these represent an injection that's been, so this injection is causing disturbance in the subsurface that's resulting in shifting of the earth and earthquakes. And here's another map showing the distribution of injection wells in the U.S. And it's showing that most obviously makes sense that most occur in Texas and Oklahoma. Why? Because that's our oil producing states, and we have a lot of saltwater, and enhanced oil recovery in those states. So they're a big percentage of it. It looks like here it's just showing the pie diagram shows the percentage, and obviously it says only 8% of all injection wells are located in Oklahoma, but 40% of the injection wells in the CFUS are located in Oklahoma. So a lot of them here. Here's the and here's Oklahoma. So yes, this is pretty important. So if we can get into, actually this is a good place to stop. I'll stop here, but we'll talk about, when we get back, we'll talk about earthquake hazards. Thanks.